focus is like live your 100. Like 100 is like 100% to the fullest. Like live your 100 every day. At least try to pursue that, to live every day doing what you can. Like leave nothing left in the tank.
This is the Mental Metal Podcast, where we explore how to forge mental toughness and resilience in every aspect of life. Welcome, I'm your host, Coach Matt Thomann. I'm an ICF certified professional coach with a background as a teacher, basketball coach, and athletic director. But my journey took a dramatic turn in 2020 when I survived both cancer and a stroke. Those experiences shaped my mission, help others grow stronger in every facet of life. Today, I work with athletes, coaches, educators, and anyone who believes that positive mental health is both achievable and a personal responsibility. This podcast is dedicated to helping listeners develop a positive version of toughness, one rooted in resilience, focus, and growth. Whether you're looking to excel on the field, in the classroom, or in life, this is your space to learn, grow, and take action. Join me on this journey, and together, let's forge your mettle. Your athlete probably spends hours working on the specific skill set they need for their sport, and they probably spend hours in the weight room building their body. But how much time do they spend intentionally training their mind? Well, building mindset is the key to bridging the gap between the skills that we see and game execution. Well, Mental Metal Coaching provides individual programs that can help your athlete develop this third and crucial skill set. Welcome to the 100th episode of the Mental Metal Podcast. And it's episode 100, which I started this podcast 100 weeks ago, which would have been June of 2023. And I know it was 100 weeks ago because I have not missed a Monday. It has been a weekly episode for these last 2+ years. And the amount of gratitude and the amount of emotion I have over that, and having you guys listen, pay attention, and learn from me it means more than you'll ever know. I looked it up between the Buzzsprout podcast listens on Apple and Spotify, and between the YouTube videos and the YouTube shorts, and just any time that somebody tuned in, even for a snippet of the content from the Mental Metal Podcast, between all those avenues on the YouTube and the listens and all those, it's somewhere around 27,000 views or listens. And I don't know what I expected when I started this, but I didn't expect that. It's been fantastic. It's grown my business, Mental Metal Coaching, and working with athletes, working with schools, working with individuals, and just going in and speaking at places. It's grown so much, and this podcast I know is a big part of it. And just the fact that people now lean into me as an expert on mental coaching and mental toughness and mental health and athletics, and it means so much to me. And the fact that people now call me and ask me questions about it, and the fact that I can answer those questions and help them out means so much. And it especially means so much to me because there was a time not that long ago when answering a question was impossible for me, next to impossible anyway. And it's also why I'm making a big deal over this 100th episode. And it's because the word 100 means a lot to me. The time when I struggled answering questions, I need to tell a little bit of story. And if you know my story, fast forward. I don't care. But I'm going to tell a little bit of my story and why the word 100 means so much to me. It would have been December of 2020, right in the middle of the COVID nonsense. basketball was shut down. I was recovering from a surgery and a scare with testicular cancer. I wasn't handling things really well, really struggling in my job as an administrator, really struggling with the anxiety from having cancer and the worry of not being able to have basketball and playing sports and things like that. And I was not doing well, and it all precipitated one evening when all of a sudden I looked down at my phone, and my wife and I were watching TV, and I couldn't use my hand. I couldn't read a text. I couldn't respond to a text. And something felt really strange when my wife asked me what was going on. I told her, I looked at my hand and flexed my right hand and said that my fingers feel strange, which brought a little bit of a laugh initially, but the laugh stopped when I said my fingers feel strange about 6 or 7 times in a row, and nothing I said made sense. Ultimately, it's a long story. Trip to the hospital, finding out that I'd had an ischemic stroke. I spent an awful night in the hospital trying to figure out what was going on. And the next morning, talking with a neurologist, they come in and they always ask you baseline questions whenever you'd had a stroke. It's not all physical. I couldn't feel my right hand because it had hit my left side, but it had hit me in the Broca's area, which affects the speech centers. And so the doctor did his baseline questions, which started with extremely baseline questions. He asked me my name, at which point I said Matt Thomann, which was good. But that's the only question I got right, because then he asked me my birthday and I replied 100. And he asked me my address and I said 100. And he asked me my phone number and I said 100. And then he started asking me other questions. And at least when he was asking me things like my birthday and my phone number, at least I was responding with an answer that was a number when I was asked for a number, but at least it wasn't the right number. But then he started asking me names of people that I knew. And he said, "What's your daughter's name?" And I said 100. And he said, "What's your son's name?" And I said 100. And he said, "What's your wife's name?" And now my wife, Dana, is in the room watching this all unfold. We'd been married for 20 some years at the point. And I looked right at her when he said, what's your wife's name? And I said 100. And it was at that point that we knew, like, this was going to be an ordeal. This is going to be an issue. And that, I mean, I did not recover right away. It took a lot of time, took a lot of focus, a lot of ups and downs. It wasn't all good, trust me. But that word 100 became a little bit of a rallying cry for me, and knowing that it meant I was worried about getting back to 100%. And when you have something that serious happen in like an ischemic stroke, it's not a quick fix. It's a long process. And I started to think about the idea of how to live your 100. And what that meant to me was it had to be a daily pursuit. It had to be paying attention to getting better every day, towards getting better and giving 100% towards my progress every day. But it also, when I say live my 100, the word "my" is huge in there because it's a very personal thing. What I was doing was comparing myself to others. I was even comparing myself to my past self. And that was just not possible at that moment. I'd had an ischemic stroke. Part of my brain had died. And living my 100 became this mantra for me of a very positive way to focus on growth and giving everything I could mentally and physically towards improving. And I got eventually hooked up with a therapist. I've had her on the show. It's been a great episode. I forget the number, but it's It's Tammy Lott is her name, and I felt like she saved my life and changed the way I thought through using positive psychology. I combined that my growth through positive psychology, my idea of living your 100, and decided I'm going to become a certified coach, certified professional coach. I started in with Lark Song. You hear me talk about Lark Song on this program. Some fantastic people. I got my coaching certification, got my I International Coaching Federation, the ICF credentials. I'm up to a professional coach now. I've taken a couple tests. I keep working on that, and it all came from that stroke and those moments in which I couldn't do much of anything, and just it became my focus to continue to grow positively, physically and mentally. And I now start again, I work with athletes, I work with educators, and I started going back into schools, and I did this quick. I think the first time I came back into a school and started talking to schools it was less than 6 months after my stroke. And it was a struggle, but I made myself start doing it. And luckily it was people I knew at first, so they gave me some grace. But I started going into other schools, and my presentation became something called Live Your 100, in which I talk about my story. But then I also talk about the positive psychology that you can use to move forward positively. And that 100 meant so much to me. And then it still means something to me. And I'm working on my book, which is, I'm getting there. And I feel like I can see the light at the end of the tunnel. And the name of my book is 100% Metal. And it's the same idea. It's leaning into that word 100. So that word 100, when I'm here at this 100th episode of this podcast, talking about the word 100 and talking to somebody about what that meant to them, it's an extremely emotional podcast for me and an episode for me. And it's great whenever I started going into schools and helping others, because you start to influence others and even the people in your life. And I have 2 kids, and I can see how that has changed them. My daughter was in college when I had my stroke and a lot of these issues, so she wasn't around all the time, but I can see a lot of what I do show up in her. She was playing a little bit of college basketball at the time. She's not now, but she is at Western Illinois, and she took over and started the women's basketball club team there. Division I teams or schools a lot of times have club teams. They meet and go travel and play. And she started coaching that and would call me about things about how to help. And a lot of times exasperated on like, how can you get people to do this and do that? And I know that my struggles and my thoughts on coaching started to help her a little bit. And I could see that, and was so proud of her doing that. And Colin, I could see that. And then my son was a junior at the time, and he was the one really not getting to play basketball time. And that was a lot of the issue of what was getting me upset at the time when I had my stroke. But he is a really good hard worker, but he's a real stoic kid. You don't hear a lot from him. You don't get a lot of feedback from him as the parent. And so I would try to make sure he was paying attention to the things that I was doing and making sure that he was listening to some things that I was preaching. We never really had a lot of feedback from him, at least verbally. Now you could see progress in him because he's a hard worker and he was doing well. But there was a stretch where he struggled a little bit in the way that things happened as life happens. He got an injury, then he redshirted a year, then he sat the bench for a year. So we had a 2.5-year stretch that he's going to talk about that he really struggled as far as getting recognition and getting time to play and these things. And not getting a chance to see the fruits of your labor. And so you never know. You just you think, oh, he's working every day, or I think he's working, but we don't really know, like, what's the end of this story, or you don't know if you're getting through. And then one day, a year or so ago, he shows up and he starts to show me that he's got a new tattoo. And anytime, it's never a great, as a parent, you're like, oh, here we go. What do we got now? What sort of bad life choices have you made here? And he shows me his side, and he's got a tattoo that says, live your 100 and 323, as in Colossians 3:23. And it was at that moment that I realized he had been listening. He had been paying attention. And some of the things that I was preaching were getting through to him. And that was just a wow moment for me. And I just really, you want to talk about, get all the feels on that one is whenever you hear that and you see that and you're like, oh, I'm really getting through to him. And the fact that it was knowing that it was helping him through those times is just really powerful. And so immediately whenever I realized that, I saw that, and that's been several months ago, but I could see a progression on my podcast. And I thought, if I make it to episode 100, Lane will be my guest. We are going to talk about Live Your 100 and the importance of 100, what that means to him, how he applies it, and the success he gets from that idea. So that's a little intro into this episode that I'm so excited to bring you, and the story of my son and how, my influence on him has grown and affected the way he does things. And he's an impressive kid. I will say that, in the way that he attacks things, and to know that I had a little bit of part in that, and helping him live his 100 means a lot to me. So I hope you enjoy this interview as much as I do. Coaches, do you dream of guiding mentally tough athletes towards a championship? Kids that are resilient, persistent, and unshaken by setbacks. Well, in today's world, those athletes aren't born. They have to be developed. Many athletes face significant challenges and risk burnout. So how do we foster that mental toughness without overwhelming them? Well, introducing the Ember to Inferno program, Building Mentally Tough Athletes. This series is designed specifically for coaches, offering a deep dive into your own journey of mental toughness and equipping you with practical tools to build confidence and belief in your athletes. Rather than just simply adding more adversity to their life, we focus on creating a strong foundation for mental resilience. You'll learn how to transform a spark of motivation into a blazing fire of toughness, using techniques that address challenges like social media pressures, athletic stress, and trauma. Don't just wish for mentally tough athletes, build them. Join the Ember to Inferno program today and ignite the potential in your athletes. For more information, contact me, Coach Thomann, at Mental Metal Coaching. And welcome back to the Mental Metal Podcast. I'm your host, Coach Matt Thomann, and I got really excited about this episode. I got a special guest today, and I'm just going to preface a little bit that usually I start every episode and I get a guest, I get an interview, and I usually make sure that we do a good job of going back, getting some bona fides, some credibility, a little bit of information about the guest, just so that everybody knows where they're coming from. And again, a little bit of that credibility and why they're worth listening to. And usually a lot of times that's really easy for me, because a lot of times I don't know the other person very well, or know them a little bit. So it's easy for me to ask these curious questions and really dive in. Today, it's going to be difficult because my guest today is Lane Thomann, and he's my son. And that's going to make it like I've been every step of your journey, I've been there with. And so we're going to have conversations about this stuff, but you and I, we're going to have to be very, very, deliberate on what we talk about and the way we tell that story, and not just assume everybody can keep up. But anyway, I'm excited to do that. And, thanks for jumping on the show and having this conversation with me, Lane.
Of course.
So the topic today, and the reason the reason I'm excited to have him on, and the reason I haven't done it before, because I think you're worth talking to. The reason the reason I haven't done it before is because this is the 100th episode, and the Lane and I know that the word 100 it means something. It's an interesting story. And Lane, obviously, I didn't know. It's funny thing. It's funny. I'll say this, that as a parent, you never know how much your kids are actually listening to you or paying attention to anything. And I started doing a lot of my speaking and talking. And one of the topics that I would talk about is live your 100. And that meant a lot to me because the word 100 at one point was the only way I could answer a question. And it was this thing. And I've used a struggle in my life to make it part of a story I tell about getting better every day and doing things your best. And like I said, you never know if your kids are listening and not paying attention. And then all of a sudden Lane shows up one day and he's got, I mean, it means a lot to me, but it didn't mean enough to me to tattoo it on my body. And I show up and Lane has live your 100 and my favorite Bible verse tattooed on his side. And I'm like, oh, he's paying attention. So I thought, man, what a great way to talk about for the 100th episode, talking about live your 100 and talk about, obviously it means something to Lane. So I want to get into that story, that whole thing about, we'll get to the tattoo later. But just what that means to you moving from your past to your present to your future. All right.
Yeah. So, I mean, to start, I know how you always ask, like, at the end, what did I ask, what I didn't ask that I should have. And
Right.
one thing I was gonna say to start with is, I know I'm not a parent, I'm nowhere close to being a parent, but I was gonna say, like, if you are, like, your kids do pay attention because I definitely did. You know,
It's well, and what I tell people now is your kid is listening. They're not picking it up in the pace that you want it to be picked up.
fair. Yeah.
Right. But I think that's probably a good thing, right? Because I don't know everything either. So, but anyway, so let's start with, man, let's talk about, because I would say that this idea of live your 100 and do your best and put a lot of time and effort into stuff, that isn't something that you just adopted after I started talking about it. I think that's an idea that you've had for a while.
Oh yeah.
So I want to let's start with your basketball journey. I don't know how, I mean, the first time I coached you, the only time I really coached you was you were a 7th grader and I was an 8th grade coach. So I don't know where you want to start, but you weren't the same. You were a little kid then.
Yeah, I was. I sure was. I don't remember how small I was in junior high, but I know as a freshman I was probably 5'6", 160.
Yeah, it was small. It was
Yeah.
small. Yeah. So
And
tell me about just your decision to like start putting in the work that you wanted to, because it wasn't easy. Like, I mean, you did well, but it was a struggle.
Yeah, I wasn't
one of,
when I was in those years, it's not like I was the, like, uber athletic, gifted, just naturally talented kids. Like, I knew back then I was on the smaller side, and I think it's a credit to you and the coaches I've had in the past of instilling some of that work in me. I also think some of it probably came innately. I don't know how or why, but I feel like I've always kind of had that. But I knew at a young age what I wanted to do in my basketball journey. Like, I knew I wanted to be good. And then with all you guys and all my coaches, like, I knew that how to get that result. Like, I knew the equation. Like, I'm going to have to put in some hours that other people aren't putting in to, like, bridge that gap and then pass those other people in that.
Why I don't know if I've ever even asked you this. Why basketball?
It's I I mean, that's just what our family has always been. I feel like it's just been basketball. Like I know when you talked with we had Casey on, and you're talking about his football journey, and he mentioned that too. Like our family has like always been basketball, and I don't know. I mean, I what you said. I remember you had you had a Facebook post that I go back and look at sometimes. You posted the day before my first high school practice when I was going
Yeah.
into high school, and you said this isn't the first high school practice I've been to because the first one I went to was when I was like 2 years old, and you were at Okaw Valley, and you wouldn't let me, and I wouldn't let you leave my basketball at home. I had to take it with me to practice. So like it's just I've been playing basketball since I could walk.
Yeah, credit to my guy Jan Thompson, who was the head coach then, and we were at Okaw Valley. I don't know how old you were. You were little,
I think you
like,
said I was like 1 or 2.
yeah, and I was like, hey Jan, can I, like, you care if I bring him? He's like, oh, absolutely. And you're over there watching, playing, dribbling, just
Yep.
being in a gym from then on. So I
And
agree.
then those other memories when you were at DMAC and the Final Four team, they made those videos, and I was in some of those videos of the player introductions.
Yeah, all those guys, Brandon and Max and Matt, and they're doing all those videos and stuff. And it's funny, I'd gone back and look at those whenever that was that DMAC team that made the run and got fourth in state, and there were a bunch of really good kids for you to be around.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
But yeah, you were in practice. You were older then, but you were up,
Oh yeah.
shooting on the side and doing
Oh yeah.
stuff. So I guess even if, let's go back to that, even if a kid's not listening, if your kid's not listening, at least they're paying attention. Like, you could tell that's
Mhm.
where I wanted to be, was being in a gym. So it was like,
Yep.
yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So you talked about, it's not just me, but the coaches you had, because you've had some really good coaches. We might get to
Mhm.
that into a minute.
Yeah.
You're talking about, you realized what the formula was to get better. Like, what is that? Like, what in your mind? What is the formula for? Let's say for a kid that's wanting to be at basketball right now. I work with a lot of kids right now who are what I call the potential late bloomers.
Mhm.
They just haven't grown. They haven't grown yet. What's the formula to keep to make the bridge that gap?
I think it's for me, it's just putting in work, putting in hours because like I was when I was that small, I was fairly confident that my size would come because of you and Andy and Keen. Like I was fairly confident that my size would come, but I know that I would need some skill to go with that. So I was just trying to put in work, put in hours. And I also, for me, the biggest source of my confidence is like when I line up for tip off and I look at the other team and I can like look at them, I can go, I put in more work than you, and you. So like that's where my confidence comes from is like knowing that you, the opponent across from me, did not put in the hours that I put in. So I know I'm prepared for this.
How do you? Okay, I agree with you because I know you. How do you know that? How do you know you're putting in more hours than everybody else?
I mean, I guess like I don't know for sure, but I one thing like I like to do is like just put in so many hours that I am like so confident that you didn't do all of that. Like I know what I did and I know like I got a pretty high work ethic and tolerance and stuff. I know that if I'm through my workouts and my days and my hours that I'm getting gassed and putting in a lot of work and fatigued and stuff, like I know that's a pretty high level. So I guess
Okay,
I don't know exactly, but like I'm pretty sure.
then let's go for a minute here then, and because I might have some kids listening to this and they're saying, oh, that's me, I'm putting in hours. Let's go specifics.
Okay.
What do we like? What are we talking about when you're talking about putting the hours? What do you talk like? What are you putting in a day, a week, a month, a year? Like, what are we talking? Like, do you track any of this, or like, what are you talking?
Yeah, so what we do in the like spring and fall at Milliken is Coach Sodi has a gun show. So
Okay,
it's tracking, so it's the whole team and you keep track of how many shots you put up throughout the week and then you send it and he sends out a leaderboard every Monday to see where you're at. So we track our shots. So Friday I put up 970 shots on the gun on Friday.
Okay.
And then, so I think I'm over 3,000 for the week,
Okay.
which I think, I mean, everybody's schedule is different, but you're always going to have time.
So you're well, I'm just out of curiosity. Does that mean you're at the top of the leaderboard for your
Well,
team?
last week I was, but also what I've been doing to try and challenge my teammates, because like we did it last fall and I was always at the top. And like, so I was at the top this past week. And like, Coach Sodi, like when he sends it out, he's like, who's going to get first? And like, I just said to everybody, I'm like, I'm getting first. I was like, it's a race to get second. I'm getting first. So I know. So we've just been joking around with my team, and like I know like they're coming after me. So
Yeah.
like that's building like a little internal competition, which I think is good, and accountability to like I know that if I'm tired and I don't want to go in, but then I'm thinking, well, he's going in, so
Yeah.
I mean,
Well, I
drag my
think
butt out of bed.
you pull the old Larry Bird line,
Oh yeah,
right?
that's why I told
Yeah.
Sodi. I was like, I went full Larry there. I'm like, who's getting second?
Who's getting second? So, but this isn't something that you just developed. You adopted at Milliken. You've been doing this. And I know that because I'm the one letting you in the gym every day,
Yep,
or I was, right? So that's
yep.
something. But you didn't always have a gun, though, right? Guns have been.
Well, I think since I really got
Yeah,
serious, I have,
that's fair. That's fair.
which very grateful for that.
No, I agree. I know the one at DMAC. I think you pretty much broke it
Yep,
and had to
I
get a
did.
new. Yeah, I had to get a new one. But anyway, I want to talk about a story when you were talking about it being innately. And I do think there's a little bit of a genetic component. It's not, I'm saying it's me or mom or whomever, but just people, some have different, just like you have people that have more physical ability, some more intelligence. I do think people are born with more or less mental toughness too. And you have to develop, it's something you have to develop if you don't
Yeah.
have it. I want to recount a story, and I want to hit if you remember
Okay.
it. So this is your freshman year. You didn't really play much on the varsity program, but we had some injuries going into the conference tournament, and I don't know if I ever told you this, but Coach John Hughes, he at one point he said he I was talking to him, and he said he's like, I think this. He said it like 2 or 3 times to me. He's like, he said, be ready. I think Lane might get some minutes tonight. And I remember looking at him and I'm like, quit telling me that. Either play him or don't. But like, you're gonna make me nervous. Like, don't
Uh,
tell me. So, but I know it was the first game at the Shirk Center in the conference tournament. So it's like really the first game you got any real minutes
yep.
in a varsity game, and it's at the Shirk Center, a nice college gym,
Yep.
and you get in, and the first thing you do is you take a charge, get a steal, and knock down 2 threes in a row.
Yep.
Or yeah, right. And
Something
I
like that.
remember. Do you remember what I asked you after the game?
Yes, if I was nervous.
I said I remembered I asked you, how did you feel do that? Did you nervous? Were you nervous? And you said no. Would that help? And I said no, it wouldn't help. He's like, and you said, and then you replied, you said, I don't know why people do that. I'm just not going to do that. And I'm like, oh, okay, then I guess but ignorance is bliss then, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a little bit what was going on there.
Yep.
But yeah, so let's talk about I want to get into your journey in basketball a little bit from that freshman year, and you had a good sophomore campaign, and
Mhm.
I know that there was a record. Did you set a record or two your sophomore year playing? Well, I don't know what it was.
It was the season 3-point percentage.
Percentage, right? So it was. I don't know what it was. Do you?
I think it was either 42 or 43.
Okay. So as a sophomore, you set the school record for 3-point field goal percentage. And I can remember having, and you also, you shot several too, right? And we had a really good team. Yeah.
Yep.
And I can remember, I still tell this story sometimes. I can remember Coach Olafson, the assistant at the time, and we were having a conversation after your sophomore season. And Coach O is very matter of fact, right?
Yep.
Very knowledgeable at the game,
Yep.
but very matter of fact. And he said, well, Lane's going to end up being the all-time leading scorer and all-time leading 3-point shooter for DMAC. You realize that? And I'm like, oh, if you feel so. And then I tell that story because you absolutely did not happen, but it wasn't necessarily due to your but I think that's part of your story because your junior year. Well, you tell me the story, what happened. Let's tell that story a little bit after your sophomore year.
Well, make a point. I did set the career 3-point percentage as well at the end.
Okay.
So
but yes, that's fair. That's fair. So you did that.
But as far as like the totals, I don't think that was really on me because after sophomore year, we went 20-9 and we had one senior that really played.
Mm-hmm.
So like it was like me, John, Zach, Reedy, Derek, like all coming back, and we were like next year like we're gonna be good. We're gonna be really good. And then as everybody knows, March 13th, I'm at baseball practice and I feel like a lot of people have this. I just have a vivid memory of it when it started. Like we were at baseball practice on the football field and John, so me and Zach, we were just like talking on the football field during baseball practice. John was at track practice, so he was running around the track, and we see Coach Ullman, who was our baseball coach, talking to Mr. Holmgren over like by the concession stand, and then we were like, "What's going on?" Because like it was like circulating, We were like, "What's going on?" And then John runs by and he goes, "We're getting canceled." And me and Zach are like, "What? What do you mean we're getting canceled?" And then as you know, everything just gets shut down, and we're like, time goes by, we're like, are we gonna play a season? Like we were thinking, like we were so ready for this, my junior season, their senior season. We were so ready. We knew we were gonna be great. We were like, are we even gonna play? And so and this shout out to Cody Myers. Thank goodness for him because he just had us working, you know, working head down, grinding, and we were getting better. And then finally, I don't know when we started games, when like January.
It was January, yeah.
But we only ended up playing 15 games,
Yeah.
And I think we went 12-3.
Yeah.
So like, I mean, we had a great season, but we only played 15 games.
Yeah, and no postseason.
And no postseason, which
Yeah.
I think we would have done well.
Yeah.
And then, so that was a bummer. And then senior season, I'm like, I'm raring to go. Like, I'm like, we got full season coming up. I'm a senior. Like, I was basically like the only returning guy. So I'm like, this is a big season for me. I'm gonna have to be a leader, like do everything, just like bring these guys up with me. And that was when Jarrett came in, Coach Brown. And I remember like I had this like lifestyle of like the process and stuff like that, but I remember he was the first one that like articulated to me like loving the process. Like that was like the first time like I heard that phrase, and I'm like, yeah, that does like match me. That makes a lot of sense. I like that. So he was really good for me. I remember I told you, or mom, I was like, it was like early on, I'm like, I haven't even played a game for this guy yet, and he's like my favorite coach ever. I just felt like I built a really good relationship with him, and he like saw where I wanted to go, and he was really good at like showing me how to get there.
Yeah, I think you two have similar personalities, so you meshed.
Yes,
Yeah,
we did. So senior season came around, and I mean, I was having a great season. I was, I don't know, I was just having a great season. I was getting like all tournament teams, stuff like that, all conference. And then,
well, I think it's fair to say. I mean, we're talking again. This is part of that thing, Lane. We don't have to assume that everybody knows. When you're saying you have a great season, I think in that you set the single game scoring record at 46, correct?
Yep.
And then I know that like you finally got into the groove in your last, was it your last 5 games? I think you were averaging, if you took the last 5 games, it was something around 35 a game, right?
Yeah, it was quite a few.
Yeah, it was
I
so
remember because I had the 46 game. The game before that, we played IVC. I had 33,
yeah.
and then the last game, I had 25.
Well, but then you would also come out of the Christmas tournament where your last 2 games in that were 30-point games.
Yep.
Yeah.
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 So you're right.
Yeah.
Don't assume. Statistically, have a pretty good season.
Really good season. Yeah.
And then what was it? January 15th, 14th,
Yeah. Yeah.
playing Tremont and just go for a layup and a fast break, come down hard, snap my wrist. I knew it as soon as it happened.
Well, you kept playing.
Oh, I did? Well, yeah. Because partially because I knew I was like, I'm fairly confident this will be my last game.
Yeah.
So I wasn't coming out for anything.
Yeah.
So
So
I played I think I played 21 games my senior year.
yeah.
And I missed the last 10.
Yeah. So I mean, you missed. I mean, totally. Like what should have been. You had basically 1 full season of games in 2 seasons, basically.
Hmm.
A little bit more than that, but not much.
Yeah.
Which really threw things off.
Hmm.
I think luckily you were planning on, but then I want to keep going on the. Like you had a great senior season there. What you had of it, but it
Hmm.
was truncated. We'll say that it
Yep.
was shortened. But then you go on to UIS to play for 2 years,
Yep.
and it was a struggle in a different way.
Yep.
So it keeps going.
So, yep, freshman year, like come from a small school, like I was best player on my team. I was ready to like go into college and just rear it up and get after it at the next level. And I think in like October, I go in the coach's office and he's telling me I'm redshirting, and it was kind of like a whoa, you know, like I didn't like that part hadn't even like crossed my mind. And I'm like, man, I've played since January, and I'm not gonna play this whole season. So like, I think that whole time period, and then the next year, like I didn't really play either. So it was a long time. Like I looked back at it from January 15th, 2022, when I broke my wrist, to my first game at Milliken, where I played like meaningful minutes again. It was over 1,000 days where I
Yeah.
played a game.
Okay, so that's a great segue into a question, right?
Yeah.
When you were talking about this process and continuing to work, that's 1,000 days in a row where you really never found the floor, right?
Yeah.
When you're talking about getting 3,000 shots up in a week and challenging your teammates on a team that you're playing meaningful minutes and
Hmm.
you're starting and doing all things, that's one thing. Talk to me about the process in 1,000-day stretch where you didn't play one single meaningful possession.
Yeah.
Talk to
Well,
me about that, because that's where we lose people,
yeah.
right? Talk about that.
Well, it was a test. I'm not gonna lie. It was it was a test, and I would be lying if I said there weren't times that I wasn't working as hard as maybe I should have been or as I am now. Just because I like, especially during that freshman season, because I knew I was like I'm legally like I'm not getting in.
You
So
just
I mean,
cannot. Yeah.
it was tough. I won't lie, but I still knew I had a basketball future, at least for the next 3, 4 years. And I knew that all my goals were still the same. I still wanted to be the best I could be. I still wanted to be good. So I knew that's really just what kept me going. Is like I still have the same end goal, and just because I'm not playing right now Like I still got to work. And I also saw it once I got through kind of that rough period of that test. I started to see it as like, all right, well, it's like during that second year when I wasn't playing, I was like, all right, I know I'm not really getting minutes. So like this is my time now that like I can just build up all this work, all the skills, and just accumulate it all. Because like at like midway through the season, like I was pretty confident I was going to transfer. So like that's when I was like, I'm just gonna head down, work, accumulate all this work so that when I do get to a team where I do play and stuff like that, like all this work for 1,000 days is gonna come out and gonna show. So I think that's really what kept my head focused, kept me focused was like I tried to like look at it as positive, like I have 1,000 days to put in all this work and then go show it.
Yeah, I think I know you and I had conversations about when you're not playing and when you're redshirting about what is like you have to be very intentional, not just with the work you're putting in, but you have to be very intentional on what you're trying to be or what you're trying to do in practices every day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I don't know what was the mentality, like what are you trying to develop in those moments, in those practices, other than helping your team just get better, of course.
Well, obviously that still came first because I still love my teammates, love my coaches and all that. Like I still wanted us to have success, and I knew that me doing my best in practice would help like us get there. But like I was also like trying to work on myself too, like because I mean we had a good team, so I knew
Yeah.
that if I was playing against those guys and like trying stuff out and trying to get better against those guys, it would help me just improve naturally.
Yeah, I know. We had a conversation or two about that. It's kind of fun to be a scout team guy.
Oh yeah.
Like
When they tell you, all right, Lane, you're gonna be the shooting guard on this team. He shoots 45% from three, shoots off the screens, he'll catch and shoot, he'll he'll drive right, left. He's their bucket getter. I'm like, okay, I can do that. And then if you're that guy on the scout team, you can do no wrong. Like you can
right.
put up a crazy shot and they'll just be like, yeah, he shoots that. And then that's like that's where you get some like confidence. You're like, because you're being this other person that's really good, but then like you start doing stuff well and you're like, why can't I just do this?
Yeah.
So
I didn't even thought about it I know we talked about it a little bit, but as you just said it, I get to act like I'm another person. And there's like a very it's like a mental perspective thing that's kind of like you get out of your own head a little bit and be
exactly,
like, oh, well, why not just I can be that guy. Just go be that
exactly.
guy.
Yeah, and then after it's done, you're like, well, I did that pretty well. I think I can just do that myself.
Yeah. Which I think is probably, again, a lot of confidence building a
Oh
little
yeah,
bit to get there. Yeah.
absolutely.
No, that's really cool. Parents, is your athlete ready for the upcoming sports season? They might have the strength, the speed, and the skills, but without confidence, they can still struggle when the game is online. Skill and strength are great, they're necessary, but they're not used to their full potential without the right mentality. Confidence is key. It's the key to unlocking that full potential. And at Mental Metal Coaching, I offer personalized sessions designed to build the confidence your athlete needs for a successful season. My proven techniques empower them to perform under pressure, both on the field and in life. Don't let a lack of confidence hold them back. Book a free session today and discover the power of confidence. Visit the website, get started on the journey to a more confident, successful athlete with Mental Metal Coaching. We'll get into what you're doing now at Milliken and stuff. That we're in that part of that journey, but I really want to dig in now to the Live Your 100.
Okay.
I want to know. I want to know when that phrase sticks with you, what that means to you, or like this. Again, I haven't asked you about this on purpose.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
you showed up with that tattoo, and I'm like, first of all, I'm like shocked because I'm like, I can't believe he's paying attention, and so part of me wanted to really dig into it. I'm like, and at that point, and it's been a while, I'm like, I'm saving this
Yep.
for a podcast. I just
Yep.
am. So I want to hear that. I want to hear. Lay it on me.
So I mean, that whole thing all happened like my junior year.
What whole thing? Remember, people
Your
don't know.
stroke.
Yeah, haven't when I had my stroke, right? Yeah,
When that idea like came to life. That was my
yeah,
junior year. But I mean, I didn't get the tattoo until last summer.
right.
So like it obviously like I didn't get it right away. So I think it really like came meaningful to me within the past like year or two when I was in a 1,000 day stretch and like when I was really starting to hunker down and work and stuff. I think that's when that idea really kind of hit me. And just like I think it was again like when Coach Brown first said that phrase of loving the process. I think your phrase of live your 100 was really like another way to articulate like my beliefs and how I want to go about my life. And I just thought it just resonated with me really well.
So what is that? So when somebody's asking, sees that and says, "What does live your 100 mean?" Like, do you have a definition?
Usually, so what I tell people when they see the tattoo, they're like, what does that mean? I'm like, I tell them the backstory of your stroke and how you could only say 100 and then how you turn that into live your 100. And I'm like, it's basically like, I know I guess your circumstances were more like, I don't want to say like life threatening, but like they were like bigger scope, of
Right.
like live your 100 because you don't know what can happen. But like my focus is like live your 100, like 100 is like 100% to the fullest, like live your 100 every day, at least try to pursue that to live every day doing what you can, like leave nothing left in the tank. Like whatever your goals are, live your 100, max that out every day, get better every day. So that's kind of my definition when people ask that.
Okay, I like it. And of course, you've got the. Can you see that up there? You've got the
Yep.
with the tattoo. You've got
Yes,
323, which
I do.
is
Colossians 3:23. It's whatever you do, do with all your heart as if working for the Lord, not human masters.
yeah,
So I
I,
had that right above it because they kind of connect, Like if you're living your 100, it's also the idea that if you want to work for the Lord, like you're gonna do better quality work, better quantity work than if you're working for human masters. And I think we had that conversation a little bit ago, like sometimes it's a struggle not to work for like awards, certifications, like certificates and human praise. Like it's hard. Like that's what our world now is centered around. But like if you want like true pursuit of like happiness and joy, like you're gonna work for the Lord.
yeah. It's funny, and that conversation is because you got. We'll go to your first year at Milliken, and you had a really good year, and you ended up getting a second team all conference.
Yeah.
And I can remember which and some numbers and some stats and some people definitely believe that it could have been first season, first
Yeah.
team. Nobody would have doubted that. And I can remember having that conversation because part of me was the dad part of me was like, yeah, I'd like him to get that recognition. But then
Mhm.
the mental coach part of me was like, oh, good. Because it's
Yeah.
when we get a lot of times when we get the recognition we're looking for. I'm not saying this happens to you, but a lot of times we get the recognition we're looking for, and we take some of that motivation away. Well, good or bad, it exists sometimes.
Yeah. And that's also the difference between working for those awards and working for the Lord is that like if you truly work for the Lord, like that motivation is gonna stay there.
Yeah,
You know, like there's always gonna be that pursuit to like be the best you can be.
yeah. So let's get into. I don't know if you saw. I'm. I don't know if you saw my post the other day. I was talking about the fact that like my dad played college basketball, and
Mhm.
I asked him about it. And when he was in basketball, they worked on basketball. They didn't lift. Like they
Yeah.
were not allowed to touch a weight, right? And then by the time I went to college and played at Millikan, we were lifting.
Mm-hmm.
Not at the level you guys are now, but we at least started. And then now everybody knows you need to be in the gym lifting.
Yep.
But then there's another huge change from with your generation is focusing on the mental skills. Is when I was playing, and obviously when my dad was playing, you expected mental toughness to be to happen unintentionally.
Mm-hmm.
Now it's something that you work on intentionally.
Yeah.
And I think that that's a cool thing to kind of recognize the progression and the evolution of basketball and sports overall. But I'm curious, what do you do now? Because I know you read some books and you do some things. Like, what do you do to intentionally develop mental toughness on purpose? Tools, books, whatever.
I guess number one is my workouts. Like not every workout is like full exertion, but I have like some workouts that where I'm like, I know during this workout it's gonna suck. But like I know this is what I gotta do. So I'm gonna get it done. And like there's points in the game where I'm tired. It sucks. My quads are burning. I don't want to get in a defensive stance, but I have to. So I'm gonna. And then a couple other things I do. I have a journal I got where I have right now it's my goals for the summer. So I write out those goals. It's every night I write out those goals, those 5 goals. And then under that I write out a 4. So I saw it on Instagram and I was like, okay, that's a cool idea. So it's 5-4-5. So you got your 5 goals with a deadline. So my deadline is August 1st. And then the 4 is a 4-step morning routine. So like when I wake up, what are 4 things I'm gonna do in the morning that help me kick off my day? So usually what I do is I say no snooze. I'm not hitting the snooze button. When my alarm goes off, I'm getting up. I usually say a cold shower. First thing when I wake up, I do a cold shower because like I think there's benefits to it, but also I like to start my day with a cold shower because I'm like also cold showers suck. So
Yeah.
I think if I can start my day doing something that I really don't want to do and possibly will be the worst part of my day, if I can do that first, then
Yeah.
then it might be good for the rest of the day. And then I have like do my journaling, like get my fluid and my supplements in first thing in the morning. So I think I try to do those 4 things in the morning that set me up for the rest of the day. And then the 5 is 5 needle moving tasks during that day to help me towards those goals.
I love that phrase.
Yeah. So if I have a big lift that day, like I'm saying, hit this big lift. And then if I'm don't have a big lift, like one of my things is like recovery, like do some sort of recovery action that'll help you. Another one that I usually almost always have on that one to make sure I do is either hit my calorie goal or hit my protein goal. So like I'm not like, I don't track, I do track like my calories and stuff, but not like super specific. Like I just want to hit like a benchmark number to know that I'm like moving in the right direction. And so yeah, I think that's the biggest thing I do right now is like have my goals, but also have like steps to get there each day.
So 2 things that I pick up from that. One, everything is so intentional. And I can't say enough about being intentional on what you want to do and what you want to achieve, both your goals and then how you're going to do it. Intentional on both. And the other, the idea of when we talk about moving a needle, I love that idea. I think because the understanding is that the needle doesn't go like that.
No.
The needle goes like that.
Yep.
Like it's a slow.
It's like the 1% better.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
It's moving that needle just a little bit at a time is how we get there.
Exactly.
Intentionality and consistency is huge. I love that. Those are fantastic things that you're doing. I want to. So here's another mental question for you.
Yeah.
So your high school career, you were, as you said, you ended up shooting 42%, something like that, for your career from the arc, which was theoretically should translate to a really good free throw percentage, but it wasn't good in high school.
It wasn't.
I don't know what it was, 60.
It was like barely 70.
Barely 70.
Yeah.
Okay. And then so fast forward a couple years where you didn't play. And then you're coming out of the gate at Millikan and you up that by close to 20%. You got I know that you slipped a little bit, but you shot basically around 90%. Somewhere in there. Real close. Yeah. I know you weren't quite there, but you were close.
I know.
That's whenever I see change like that, I don't even know how you did it, but when I see change like that, you did something.
I know. I'm trying to think of what I did. Oh, I feel like
Is it just
like I just shot a lot more free than I usually do.
Okay. No visualization, no nothing from just.
I don't really think so. I guess part of the visualization came from like I just shot more free throws during my workouts, during my gun workouts, during my extra shots. Like I just shot more free throws. So like I just saw the ball go in the hoop more times.
I love it.
That's the only thing I can think of that I did.
That's you. That's your confidence comes from you getting in the gym.
Yep.
Period. End of story. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is probably the best way to do it. So we've talked about your past. We've talked about your present with the Live Your 100. What's going forward?
Well, I mean, going forward, are you talking like the rest of my basketball career or like beyond?
I don't know. Whatever you got, brother.
Well, whatever my goals are for like the rest of my basketball, the rest of my life, like the process won't change. Like I won't, like even when I stop playing basketball, like this idea of live your 100, the process, wherever you do work for the Lord, like that's not going to change. Like the goals will change, but the formula to get there won't change. Because that's another idea of live your 100 and stuff is it doesn't apply to basketball. I mean, it can. I apply it to basketball, but it applies to everything.
Yeah.
So like the process and whatever I do, the process won't change.
Yeah.
Because I mean, it's been successful for me. So.
Well, I mean, yeah, when you see success,
keep doing it in whatever I want to do.
Yeah. No, I know. I mean, I know you got some other goals too. I know you're going to want to go coach and teach, but I also know you want to go. I mean, we've been talking about running and biking and swimming and all those things too, which is interesting too.
Yep, that will be, like I've said, and I told you, like I want to do an Ironman at some point. Yeah. Like that will be, I think, a whole new test for me.
Yeah,
because it's going to be rough. But I think I got a strong foundation. I think I'll get it done.
Yeah. No, it takes time though.
Oh, I know.
Yeah. No, it's good. You probably have to lean back into that at least 1,000 days again because that's probably more than that. Yeah, it's going to take a while.
Yeah, it'll take a while.
All right. Any advice? Any last words of wisdom?
Are you going to ask me the question after this?
I will.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I have thoughts on that too. I came prepared.
I'm sure you did. You're probably one of my more faithful listeners more than anything else.
Yeah. Advice. I mean, I guess the biggest thing I use is where my confidence comes from is the word, and that can come in basketball, can come in any facet of life. Like, because I don't know who came up with the quote, but like, I don't know who said it, but I know Kobe said it at one point. I don't know if he came up with it, where like you don't rise to the level of the occasion, but you fall to the level of your training.
Mm-hmm.
So
I think it's a Navy SEAL thing.
It would make
Yeah.
sense. But
Yeah.
like, yeah. So like, you're gonna be as good as the work you put in, and like, so you just make sure you you're doing everything you can to know that the level of your training is as high as it can be.
Yeah. Something in that made me, I didn't ask a question that I should have. And that is like, how do you handle failures and losses in this process of yours? Because they happen.
Yes. I'm, I mean, I know I'm getting repetitive here, but when I handle fears, it's just more. Because I remember when we played Illinois College earlier this year and we just laid an egg. We just had a terrible game. I remember the next day, me and JT went to the gym and we put up over 1,000 shots on the gun together.
Yeah.
Like it was just more.
Yeah.
And I think like that's another piece of advice or insight is that like all this work and stuff, like along with loving the process, like the process is going to be boring. It's going to be repetitive. You're going to be doing the same stuff every week, every day. But if you want to get to where you want to get, you got to love the boring stuff, you
Mm-hmm.
know? So I think that's probably where you'll lose some people too, is because
Yeah.
it gets boring.
Yeah. It
Like
it does
I've
great.
done the same gun workout this whole year. Like almost every day, I'll do the same gun workout. It's 305 shots exactly. I know what it is. It's 305 shots, and I do it almost every time I go on the gun. It's the same thing, no variation, but it just stacking days.
That's your basic gun workout.
That's like like the first thing. If I want to add more on after that, I'll add more on, but it's 25 free throws, 90 mid-range shots, 25 free throws, 140 threes, 25 free throws, and it's all just catch and shoot. So that's whenever I get on the gun, that's my base.
Okay. So that's your base. You're always going to be doing that.
Yep.
And where we're talking, this is a, maybe I shouldn't do this, but if it's a brag moment, whatever. But what is your percentage that you're making whenever you do that 350 shots that you just described? What's your
I
average percentage
I try to get over 90%, and I usually do that
for that 350
for
shots?
that 305.
305. I'm sorry.
I usually get my goal is over 90, and I usually end up like 91, 92.
Yeah.
But like I remember one day I sent you, I was at like 96.
Yeah.
So
But it's like that doesn't happen overnight.
no,
That's the consistency that we're talking
yes,
about. And that's where the confidence comes from.
'cause I would say at this time last year, like I wasn't even hitting 90 consistently.
Right.
You know.
So there's room for progress
Oh
even
yes,
now still. Yeah.
absolutely.
Okay. All right, it's cool. Well, and I say that about the failures and stuff because I know I'm there every one of your games and I know that like when you lose and when you fail, like, you handle it better than I do.
Yeah.
And I know that it's like I don't know, and I know that's the right attitude because it's like if you put in enough work, if you're putting in the work, you don't feel upset about a loss because you're like I'm doing everything I can.
Mhm.
Or maybe you're not. I don't know, but because if you do get upset, then you show up the next day and you keep working, right? But
Yep.
it doesn't do any good. It doesn't do any good to dwell on it.
No.
Yeah.
No.
All right.
Yeah. I think me and you sometimes we're wired a little differently
A
sometimes.
little bit. Yeah. Yeah. No, I agree, and that's fair. Um. All right. So then, last question. Then, what did I not ask you that I should have? I know you're excited about this.
Well, I think we almost got there when we started
Almost.
talking about what was next and what
Okay.
how like I want to do the Iron Man.
Yeah.
So what I was kind of anticipating, but I also didn't think you would go there was like where do I get some of my influence from?
Yeah, I'd love
and
to.
my like
Mhm.
inspirations. So
Yeah.
I I wrote down three people that I kind of follow and go along with that
Okay.
like I get some inspiration from. So the first one, we talked about it before we came on the podcast, was Alan Bishop in Houston.
Yeah. Yeah.
And like I the reason I'm like kind of like a Houston fan like was because of like Alan Bishop and he's their the men's basketball strength and conditioning coach and like just the way he does stuff and like I
Very
just
intentional.
yeah,
Intentional stuff. Yeah.
yes, he's great. I love him. I love the stuff he does. Like I follow him on everything and all the workouts he does. But then also just like the whole Houston culture. And I remember after the game last night, Kelvin Sampson had a quote, like the first thing he said after the reporter asked him, he said,
Yep.
"No one ever loses at anything as long as they don't quit."
Yeah.
And like that just like personified Houston in that game and
Yeah.
like their whole culture. Like they were down, they were down what? They ended the game on a 9-0 run in 33 seconds with the last 32 seconds. So
Mhm.
they were down six with 30 seconds left. Like that team, I saw the on ESPN when they during that time Duke had a 91.6% chance to win.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like game was practically over, but like they just had no quit. So, and I think that also applies like if they did lose that game, like they didn't
Yeah.
quit though. So like it's like, kind of like that famous Jordan quote, like I've never lost a game in my life. I just ran.
Right.
Like you put in the work. Like the result on the scoreboard may be a loss, but like it's not truly a loss.
Well,
You
that
know?
goes back. I talk about that all the time. That the Colossians 3:23 and working for the Lord and things like that. Like it is a win and a loss on a scoreboard is a human.
Yes.
It's this human
Concept.
concept,
Yeah.
right? Yeah. So it's. I agree. I'm with you.
Okay. And the next guy is Truett Haynes.
Okay. Oh yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And he's, I think he's just great because like I know you have very mixed feelings about Goggins and stuff,
I
but
I read all Goggins
I
books
know.
and I get it. It's just here's my problem with David Goggins. When we talk about some people building like having innate
Yeah.
abilities on like the things that David Goggins wants people to do, 99.9% of people don't have the mental strength to do
yeah,
without
he's just,
cracking. So he's an outlier. So I don't like his. I like reading about him, but anyway,
yeah.
Truett Haynes though.
But Truett, I think he's like every day he'll post what he does on his Instagram story, like his workouts from like his
Mm-hmm.
Garmin watch or whatever. And like this, like the amount of stuff he does every day is just insane.
Yeah.
Like insane. Like he's working towards a sub 2:30 marathon. And last month or 2 months ago, he just broke the record for most pull-ups in 24 hours.
Right.
Like, so I think he just being able to see somebody like him and what he does, you're like, I can do more than what I think I can
Yeah.
for
Well,
me.
I mean, when we say a sub, people run sub 230s, not all the time, but people do it. But he's jacked and
Yeah,
doing it. Yeah.
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 So he's just like, I see him as an inspiration because I'm like, he can do all this. Like, I know I can do more than what I'm putting in. So I just try to push myself. And then the last guy, who's the last guy? You know the last guy,
Nick Bear.
Nick Bear.
Yeah, I know that. Yeah.
I think I think he's probably the biggest guy that I follow, just because and like watch his videos and stuff. Because I just think he's great. I wrote down two quotes that he's got that really like hit me. First one was, "If it matters to you, you will make time."
Mm-hmm.
So like he talks about all that because he's done Ironmans, ultra marathons, stuff like that, and he's like, if I try to find time in my day, like it won't happen. So I gotta make time. And he's a military guy, and he's wrote two books. The first one was kind of like on this idea. It's called 25 Hours in a Day. But I also think that doesn't apply with like working out. It can apply, but it doesn't have to. Like because he talked about that too. He was like, if I want, and again, the idea of intentionality. Like he's like, if I want
Right.
to spend more time like reading my Bible and praying and stuff, like I will make time in my day. Like I won't find time. But then he's also talking about writing his book. He was like, I will make time early in the morning, sit down and write my book, which is like, I see that with what you do too. Like
Mm-hmm.
you schedule your day out, you make time. You're like, I'm going to do this. Like, I'm not going to try and like fill, like find a half hour in my day between meetings to try and do this stuff because it just won't happen.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's how workouts go, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And then the second one is you won't regret the work you put in. So like that one really, I think of that one a lot when I have to get up early in the morning and like I say I'm going to get up in the morning and go do a workout. I would regret it if I slept in and missed a workout. It might suck when I get up in the morning, but if I do that workout, I'm going to feel good after. Like I'm not going to regret getting up and getting that workout done. So I think that's another just motivational driver for me.
Well, I think that what the context in that quote is, you will never regret the work you put in, even if you miss a goal.
Hmm. Yeah.
You won't. You'll
Like,
still,
yeah,
yeah,
that one just, I think that one ties into like the whole idea of everything we talked about. Like, it's, oh, where am I going with that? Like, you won't regret, like, even if you lose the game, like, you're not going to regret knowing that you put in all that you could. Like, you would regret it if you were like, man, I could have done this.
right.
But you'll be satisfied and content if you were like, maybe not the result we wanted, but I did everything that I could.
Yeah. No, those are really good quotes. And you've got me listening to him a little bit. All these guys you got, I'm following them now, and they're worth paying attention to.
Yeah,
They're good. I like those guys. So okay, well, that's a really good. I should have asked that question. Who
I
you
know.
follow, but there you go. Now you had the opportunity. If I'd have asked
Yeah,
it, then you wouldn't have anything
I
to
would,
to say.
I would.
See, there you go. So, okay. Well, hey, man, this has been great, Lane.
Yeah,
We've gone over time, but I don't care.
yeah.
So, anything else? Did we miss anything at all?
Hmm. I don't think so.
Okay. Got a big season coming up. Looking forward
Yep,
to it. I love hearing how you're challenging your guys, and I'm excited about it. And there
that's
we go.
right.
Go Big Blue.
That's right.
Mettle is a person's ability to face adversity in a spirited and resilient manner. It is a great skill to have for athletics and for life, but it is not something we are born with. If you want it, you have to forge your mettle. And if you listen to the Mental Mettle podcast, you already know that, but not everybody else does yet. So help me out by ordering and wearing some sweet The Mental Mettle podcast gear. We've got short sleeve tees, long sleeve tees, and some super comfortable hoodies. Order online today and you can have your gear in no time. But the best part is that every order helps support the show and helps me spread the message that mental toughness is a trait that can and should be built. So find the link in the show notes, order your gear, and start showing that you know how to forge your mettle. Your athlete probably spends hours working on the specific skill set they need for their sport. And they probably spend hours in the weight room building their body. But how much time do they spend intentionally training their mind? Well, building mindset is the key to bridging the gap between the skills that we see and game execution. Well, Mental Mettle Coaching provides individual programs that can help your athlete develop this third and crucial skill set. So there are a lot of things I will talk about from that interview. There's a lot of things I think about that interview. It really makes me think a little bit. And one of the things that I've noticed, one of the things that's changed in me, and obviously when I mentioned my stroke and the positive psychology and the coaching and all the therapy that I went through, it changes you, and it changes the way you look at the world and the way you think about things. And it's extremely normal for us as parents to be proud of our kids, and I think we should be. We should challenge them, but we should be proud of them. We should celebrate their wins. But I've noticed that when I'm talking about with both my kids, it's really changed on what I'm most proud of. I mentioned my daughter is at Western. She's got her master's. She's working on her master's. She's leading some classes, leading a basketball club at Western, and I'm proud of her for taking those things on and taking the challenges and working on them. And of course, I'm proud of her for getting her degree and continued working on her degrees and those diplomas that we can hang up that end up, how we get jobs. But when I'm talking about my son as well, it's really easy to be very proud of his accomplishments. He had some really good accomplishments as a high school basketball player. He's starting to gain some as a college basketball player. But with him, same with my daughters, is noticing and being proud in how they, accept challenges and go through life attacking things. We can't help, so many of the things that happen to us, so many of the God-given gifts that we're given, an ability to play basketball. You can do things to improve that, but, a lot of what we're given is God-given, and our abilities and our non-abilities. It's about focusing on what you can do to get better. And when I listen to Lane's story there, that's what strikes me. That's what I'm proud of. And in his last 3 or 4 years, he's been working at being a basketball player all his life, but in his last few years, he's had some ups and downs, and how he's handled that. We talked a little bit about the injury and how it just set him back. But he didn't really talk about that story too much, but I don't know that he ever missed a practice. He just kept showing up to practice. Now, he couldn't do much, but he would just start working on his right hand. His left hand had broken, and he's a left-handed shooter, and he would work on that. And I know that he wants to be a coach someday, and I know that he took that time on the bench when he would so much rather have been playing. He took that time under Coach Brown and Coach Thornton, the assistant, and learned a lot about how to coach, which is, if you can learn how to coach a little bit, it helps you be a better player. And then he went on and he finally rehabbed his injury and went to UIS. And, every kid goes to college and thinks, oh, I'm gonna tear it up, right? They haven't seen me. And then when you show up there and you're asked to redshirt, and it's like, hey, we don't really need you right now. Now, a lot of times with redshirt, it's a good indication that the coach wants you around and likes you and thinks you're worth developing. But it's also like, hey, we're good right now. Why don't you sit this one out? And nobody likes being told, hey, let's sit this one out. And he even mentioned that was a struggle at times, and figuring that out. And I love the positives he got from that. I've worked with several athletes before and had them on the podcast about getting to redshirt, and it's a tough situation. And I think that he is getting to be the man on a scout team helped him understand, hey, I can be the man in real life. And I know that from talking to him in that year, it was tough, but I know that we talked about that, about, hey, you're developing these skills that are going to help you be better next year. And then he got into next year, and, there's a, college basketball landscape the way it is. You have people transfer in different situations, and he doesn't get the minutes he wanted. He basically got no minutes, and it was a tough situation for him there. And I've made no apologies for this on the podcast when I talk about the portal. And I think the portal has its drawbacks, and the fact that kids can transfer now, it's caused a lot of problems. But at a level that we're talking about with my son, the Division II, Division III level, we're not talking NIL deals anyway. It wasn't about And I think it's often said, oh, well, you just didn't like the coach and you can't put up with it. And he's pushing you too hard. And that just absolutely was not the case with my son. He just wanted to go somewhere and play. As he said, he'd been 1,000 days without really seeing the floor. And when you put in that kind of time, you want to see the floor. And it worked out a great situation. He transferred to my alma mater and is playing at Millikan. And I know that a lot of the lessons he learned at UIS, he's applying there, and that's great to see, and how he's using those lessons and building. But now I love to see how he goes about, now that he is getting that playing time, how it's not like, oh, I'm good now. I'm getting to play. I don't need to do anything else. No, it kind of like amped him up. And because the thing about living your 100 and the 100% is it's not there's always something you can challenge yourself on. You can get better. It's not about, and that's the thing about, as a parent, when you celebrate the wins too much, or you celebrate the accomplishments, and when you get the accomplishments, it can make us feel very hollow. You should celebrate them, absolutely, but we don't know where to go from there. And when you start to get those accomplishments, you're like, well, what's next? And I love that he's getting to play. He's getting some recognition, but he's like, I still want more. And there's still more in the tank, as he puts it. And I love that he draws his confidence from getting in the gym. And I think a lot of kids do that. And the more you get in the gym, the more you can do that, and to be able to look over and say, I've put in more time than you. And knowing that that's the truth and not a fabrication, absolutely huge. I think it's a great idea. And I love now how his 100 and doing everything he can is now applying to some leadership. He's in a leadership role on that team, and how he's challenging the other players to make them better. A little bit of recognition that, you can't do it all by yourself. You need some other players to step up and do it and help you do that. And he's got next year got a lot of young players probably looking up to him coming in, and by challenging them, he's raising the bar. And so his 100 influences somebody else's 100. And I love to see that growth. And what's really cool, and what I'm really proud about what he's doing is, and I think a lesson to be learned here, is the idea that he's a really good basketball player. He's had a lot of success. But when I talk about developing that third skill, that first skill is the skills that he's getting in the gym and getting the shots up, and he works on that. And the second skill is getting in the weight room, and that kid, he does that. But that third skill is purposely and intentionally working on mental skills, building confidence. And he does something every day. He had his method for making sure that he's staying focused and working on his mentality and paying attention to that. And that is it's what I believe now, that's the next evolution in athletics and in coaching, is that we have to be intentionally finding ways to challenge kids to develop that third skill. And I love that he's doing that. And it doesn't matter how good you are, you can always be working on something and improving that third skill, that mentality. It's fantastic. So that's the 100th episode. It's fantastic. I just love it. And the idea that he's living his 100. And if you ever want me to work with your kid or your team, I would love to help him do that. It's been a great one. I'm your host, Coach Matt Thomann. This has been the Mental Metal Podcast. And always remember to forge your metal. Thanks for listening to the Mental Metal Podcast. Don't forget to tune in every week for more insights and strategies to help you forge mental toughness and resilience. This podcast is brought to you by Mental Metal Coaching, where we are driven by a passion for sharing knowledge and experience that empowers others to play, live, and grow with confidence. Our mission is to instill a resilient and spirited mindset in our clients, enabling them to confidently face adversity and actively seek new challenges for personal growth. At Mental Metal Coaching, we offer individual coaching, group coaching, and professional development for schools and businesses. Whether you're an athlete, educator, or professional, we're here to help you unlock your potential and thrive in every area of life. Until next time, keep growing, stay resilient, and always remember to forge your metal.